All right, welcome everybody to Cycletours Podcast. We're very excited today to have local cycling legend and multi-time national champ and a huge advocate for just cycling in the community. Larry Nolan is joining us on the podcast. Larry, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
we'll start with the question. Am I now a cycling jerk? I've been called many things, but is this what it takes?
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, it's kind of tongue in cheek, you know. We like to have a lot of fun on the podcast. And
Good, good. I'm ready to have some fun.
all right, but speaking of jerk, I just jumped right in. I'm so excited to have you on, Larry, that I just completely ignored my co-host, Dave Dalton. Dave,
Oh,
Dave's here as
what?
always. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. And what number are we at, Mike?
I don't know. Is it 147, I think? We've done a bunch of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But Larry, so I know we've talked, Dave had mentioned that we don't do research, but I did do some research. And I got on this page. I'd never been on this before, the road race results page, or is that anyway, it's got your history from like 24, was it 2010 maybe, all the way to up to current.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You've been racing, you've accomplished so much in only 10 short years, Larry.
Yeah. Road results took advantage of USA Cycling have a week. I told you this might be spicy, but they took advantage of USA Cycling not putting results out very well. And I'm maybe we're all over the place. You got to control me, but where I'm thinking is like when people do races, they want to know how they did, and that's what they do is they go out and they look at this stuff. And I don't necessarily study it and everything, but it's also a way to know your competition. I mean, literally, their layout is amazing to be able to see who's in the race, maybe what the races are like, things like that. So it's a great
It's
tool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. I mean, I like the term. Somebody's having fun with it too. It's not just a dry, it's like top victims, and top nemesis and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. But yeah, I had a lot of fun just kind of looking through your career. Man, what a career you've had. You it now when did we usually like to find out when did your love affair with a bicycle begin for you?
Well, okay, so can I do a prelude to that? Can I
Sure.
understand? Because you've
Is it
got
like Star Wars where the prequel and
exactly. We're gonna do a little bit of warm up. What instead of send me in a direction here. So where would you like your listeners and now viewers to get out of the next hour? What do you want them to be left with? Because literally they might tune in and go like, oh my God, that old guy. No wonder they called him a legend. He was really crusty. And like I don't want to be that get off my lawn guy. So tell me where you two would like to take
because
this.
I already had him on the podcast. Don't worry about that. So
Uh-huh. Dave is the resident get off my lawn guy. Okay.
Okay.
So that's every week we got that. So yeah, you don't have to worry about taking it too far. We just kind of want to chat you up and find out about your career. How'd you get started? What motivates you? Obviously you're no longer a spring chicken and you're still getting after it at a really high level. And so I
yeah,
get
and I
asked
think
all the
that
time,
I think that dovetails right into what you had mentioned in your email, Larry, is perseverance. Like, I mean, I think it's amazing. And what is it, especially when you've accomplished so much, and a lot of our listeners may not know how much you have, but because we're local, we may know more about that. But what is it that you know motivates you to keep going? And then because I think that that's what's going to inspire a lot of listeners is what is it that keeps them going? What is it to keep them? It's one thing to keep riding at the bike, but it's also another thing, I think, to keep competing at such a high level. I know that, when we've had this discussion on a bunch of previous podcasts, like, I go to bed every night recently thinking, have I lost the fire in my belly? I still ride a ton, but am I as competitive? And I want to be, but I don't know. So what is it, right? And how do you do it?
I mean, this is great. Here we are on Zoom chatting about this. It'd just be fun to be riding along, or maybe even after the ride to enjoy. But here we go.
yeah.
I'm gonna go. We are one day after Mother's Day, and I literally I think my drive comes from both my mom, who will be 91 in June, and also my wife, who we've been married to for 42 years, that um, they're just living and loving, right? You had mentioned love, and I just love the sport. So we'll keep it to the sport of cycling and not necessarily the women in my life, but they're hugely inspirational because, right, no one in our family looks at it like, hey, let's talk about the good old days and what it was like. And, I mean, literally, it's looking forward and going and saying, okay, my best days haven't come yet. What are they like? I mean, I'm literally in a very happy place right now. I don't work full time. I have grandkids. I got a loving wife. I mean, we still got some good races locally. I don't have to ride my bike all the time, and every time I do, I just love to get on it. So it's like, so I'm going to answer my own question. I think what your listeners may want is like, okay, wait a minute, this guy did talk about consistently. So the results go back way before 2010. I mean, I started, now to kind of answer your question. My love of the bike came quite late. I was not a very good runner in high school, wanted to run so I could make the basketball team because the coach happened to coach the basketball team. So I ran so he would get a look at everyone, and I did make the basketball team eventually, and we were lousy, and I was not good. So it wasn't like I had like you might talk to someone like, or even the junior. I was a junior team director, and we had some juniors that were amazing, and we'll get to some of those stories later. But went off to college and was like, I'm done. I'm like, sports are it, because I'm not going to make a sports team at a college, but I end up watching some a cross country team go by. Went to St. Mary's College locally, and saw the cross country runners go by, and like literally three guys go by quickly, and then like a group goes by, and then the trailers go by, and I'm like, I could do that. And at 205 pounds, I wasn't a great runner. And then I kept, and that was a running boom. And then a buddy talked me into triathlon. I started doing triathlon, which is really just a pecking order of going as hard as you can. And I ended up getting pretty good at that, but finally got into cycling via a triple trailer truck up in Lake Tahoe. So I was riding around the lake, and in Nevada, they're allowed, triple trailers are allowed. And I got clobbered by the last of the trailers and just got so damn lucky that traffic was on the left, guardrail and all kinds of forest was on the right, and I slid straight down and ended up injured but alive. And so running took that, that running was taken from me, which was, really therapeutic. I mean, I do some silly therapy now, like for instance, the number of times I've climbed Palomares Road in COVID
I'm
is
gonna ask that what we're up to now, but yeah.
yeah, it like makes people scratch their head. Why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep doing that? But anyway, so this pecking order that was established in both running and triathlon, it is not existent in cycling mass start events, right? So you can be the strongest rider in a cycling mass start event, and you may not win. Depends on the terrain and all that stuff. But there's the drafting, right? So I went from and just to keep it, back kind of a little bit with coaching, because I am a USA cycling coach and still active, is that, and then this is also where my wife helped me. She was a PE teacher. So I came from triathlon into bike racing, that we started at Cat 4s. I did 2 races and earned an automatic upgrade into a Cat 3 status, which is silly because I had no skills to be a Cat 3. So now I'm a danger to myself and a danger to more skilled riders.
Yeah.
And
How'd you get that? Because of your results? I mean,
yeah, literally, I did a race in Livermore called the Cat 4 Challenge, and you got an upgrade if you won, and I won. And I won because there was a crash near me, and I had an adrenaline rush of a lifetime that I could probably still remember. And literally, there's a crash. I get this adrenaline. I go soaring off the front. Again, I'm a triathlete. I had no problem going solo. I just had a problem sitting in a pack. But you take the education of my wife and be able to take an analyst like me and say, hey, here's some skills that you should learn. Here's the proximity to other riders. Here's a place to protect yourself. Here's a way to anticipate danger and things like that. And I started to learn how to read races, which is really important. And then read other riders, position yourself, stuff like that. So anyway, just started having more and more fun because for instance, when I ran high school track, I saw it as like really difficult to just make a bunch of left-hand turns. But now I can go to the velodrome and I can make a bunch of left-hand turns, and it's completely satisfying. There's the nuances of the sport are completely different to someone that looks at it differently. Or even, let's say you're not a racer. One of your listeners is not a racer and they just go like, I just love to ride my bike. Well, the fact shows that if you can go out there and vary your workouts, meaning your terrain or your speed or your friends or your solo or, whatever it happens to be. If you give variety to your workout, then you're going to add a lot more enjoyment to your rides. And therefore when the pace picks up, you can still be with people. And if you decide to like press the top of the hill and come back for the slowest rider, that gives you an option kind of thing. So a long way to answer your question, but I've been doing this so I was a triathlete from 84 to 90 when I got hit.
You got hit running, you said, right? You were out running, and that's when you
No,
got
I was
hit
riding my bike
Oh.
around Lake Tahoe, 72 miles.
Okay.
Got covered. And then I've been active for, I don't know, what is that, four almost 5 decades of literally either up and moving or doing some physical therapy from recoveries because I've had some crashes. So, but that's kind of, again, now connecting it with my mom and my wife and my life, it's like we just move. Like we're not sitting around. So I'll turn that into a question for the two of you instead of me talking the whole time. Is like, so because you're younger, so but when you think of like, okay, how, like what Dave was saying, like, okay, where's my motivation? How long do I keep doing this? It's a question I think of too. I'm getting close to retirement. Will I lose the fire in my belly if, that's literally what people do when they get older, they slow down. But why should we? So I'm questioning that. And let's turn that into a question for the two of you. It's like, what do you anticipate 2 decades from now or just 1 decade from now looking like for you? Good.
Mike or Jay? Oh,
Yeah.
we can't think about it. Wait, ding dong, ding. Okay, go. You go, Mike. I'm
I
ready
should
to go.
call my name. Sorry.
All right. Well, I hope it looks pretty similar to the way it is right now. I just keep going. I do get asked, and that was part of the motivation for the question originally was, I'm in the bike industry, so I'm in bike shops all the time. I ride a lot, and I get asked all the time by these younger people. It's like, dude, how do you do it? You just constantly putting in these big rides, ride after ride after ride. It's just ridiculous. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. There's something about for me, it's just pushing myself, uh, feeling it's silly to talk about what you feel at the top of a summit because we've been doing it for so long. But I still love getting to the top. And there's a sense of satisfaction. And, I don't know. I feel like I don't see that ever changing in me. I feel like I've always been kind of type A, uh, high energy. And so I just think, and maybe it'll happen, but I hope not because I feel like I always tell people like the bike rides are like my church. Some people, even a sacrilege to some people, but to me, it's like it's mind, body, and soul is all getting nourished while I'm out there doing it. And there's nothing that makes me feel like that. So I never want to lose that feeling.
Okay, sticking with you, Mike. Okay, went to Golden State, Omnium. They turned it into an Omnium, but on Saturday it was pour down rain and it was ugly. And we all literally, it was raining so hard and getting colder that even as we're getting out of our cars, we're like, oh, should we be doing this? Like, it was like, it's one thing to have it rain while you're out there, but it's another one like to start into it. And a teammate crossed wheels and went down hard and ended up with a concussion. And it literally makes us as a team and me especially think like, okay, wait a minute, what everything you've described can be attain from riding your bike. So we all, because we're racers, we're wondering like, okay, do we still need to race, right? Is racing more inherently dangerous than just riding? And so I'll shut up and listen before I told you it was spicy, but I have some opinions on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I may just finish up on to your point. So last year I did the Wild West
Okay.
gravel grinder,
Mhm.
and it rained almost I mean, it's
Right.
125 miles and 13,000 feet.
Right.
So it's a big day. And it rained on us. The only time it didn't rain on us was when it was snowing and hailing on us.
Mhm,
It
mhm.
hailed on us for 40 minutes straight. It was insane. And
Yeah.
there were times during that ride where, you're just hating it.
Right.
But still, I get to my
Right. They call
car.
it riding through the darkness, right? No.
Yes, right through the darkness. I'm gonna steal that because I haven't used that before. But still, I got to my car after this completely miserable thing. I can't feel my hands, I can't feel my feet. I couldn't even take my helmet off because I couldn't
Right.
pinch
Right.
you know. And I got in my car and I sat down and I literally just started laughing, because it
Mhm.
was just such a horrible experience, but it was still me racing my bike, feeling, I don't know, the feelings, it can be a horrible experience, but you still have appreciation for it, or at
Mhm.
least I do.
Right.
So maybe I'm just a psycho. I don't know. But I feel like when I talk to other people that race or do these ultra distance things where it can get away from you, like the joy of it can get away from you.
Right.
I feel like it's a shared experience for people that enjoy doing these kinds of things. So,
Right. Bringing it back down to earth for people that may not be out there in the hail and snow, but literally anyone that does something more than they either thought they could or have ever done before has a sense of accomplishment that you can literally put it away and go like, that was, I just spoke of not having past reflections, but that is something you can go like, you can never take that away from you, right?
yeah, and I feel like in racing, there one, it's just like you're volunteering to do the hardest thing, right?
Mhm.
So like there's hard things that happen in life, and I feel like that all these hard things that you voluntarily put yourself through kind of builds up this armor for you. And so something that maybe if you didn't have these experiences, maybe it would affect you differently. And then also to that point, like when we're out there riding in the rain or training in this headwinds or really less than optimal experiences, I feel like those are things that you pull on in that final sprint or
Right.
whatever, right? Where you look at everyone, let's say there's four of you at the end and you're just trying to get to the finish line, and just know that all of them are hurting
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
like you are, and you've done all the things.
Right.
So, now it's just time. Just put your head down and just go win the thing. So, I don't know. I feel like it's a collection of all those experiences that help give you, and granted, every other person hopefully is in the same headspace I'm in at that
Right.
moment,
Right.
right? So we're all thinking, we've done the work, we deserve this, let's
Yeah.
get it. And that's why you keep going back, I think, or why I keep going back. But that said, I don't race like you do. I mean, you're a racer.
But I love what you're going through, right? You're especially like I just want to dissect one other part, right? You've explained this great, especially at the end, right? You get close to the end, and then you're explaining like, because I've done that. I've been with four people and go like, "Oh, I'm happy to finish. I've done the other where you're like,
yeah,
I want to beat these people, but you also I want to go the other chapter, which is the lead up to it, or if you ever had any conversations with people who have done something as difficult as you're just explaining, to go like that's the answer that you can't give to everyone like, hey, why do you write so much, Mike? I see you out there all the time. You're like, because I am preparing myself to have that very long day that could include rain, hail, and snow, right? And then, yeah. So, and
yeah,
to be yourself, to be your best self on that day. That's pretty important. That's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. And we had a guest on the podcast a while back that he said that he was racing a cross race and he worked super hard to get into third place, and he was really pleased with himself to be in third place. And then his mind shifted and said, maybe I can win this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So to be just happy to be there, and then also, and then to shift and have that mindset of like, I'm going to win. I'm here to win. You know, I think that's a huge shift for people to make, and you make it through a combination of things. You know, I think it's fitness, you know, suffering, certainly part of it, dealing with different situations, your mind. Yeah. Thank you, Dave. How you view yourself and how you
That
view
didn't
the
come across on the
situation.
podcast. I know that.
Yeah. All right. I've taken enough time. Let's hear what Dave has to say, because Dave has struggled with motivation. And well, okay.
Clarify. Let me clarify.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and I'll try to get all that. And now I'm going to ramble because I mean, there's a couple parts of the question. Number one, I want to go back to something that you were talking about before, Larry, about life and your mom and all that. Like, let's be honest, right? Without the support of our spouses and families, none of this would be possible. Like,
Right.
you know, I mean, like I'm kitted up right now, and when we're done, I'm going for a ride, which means my wife will come home from work, and it'll be 2 hours before I walk in the house, right?
Right.
So with this, none of this would be possible without them. So I'm totally with you on that one as far and the kids and the you know all that.
Yeah.
I do want to be just clear in that when I say I lost my fire, right? And the listeners are going to go, "Oh, not this story again." But
Hey, every story has an arc. Go.
Go. Yeah.
what happened is, right, and it affected everybody, but COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
And I had just closed my bike shop. I go to teach. I'm teaching in the school system. COVID hits. Now I'm out of a job. I don't know what to do. A friend calls me, allows me to work in the bike shop, in his bike shop. So I'm in there for 2.5 years. And what that really meant, honestly, it took my Saturday away, which meant it took House of Pain away, which, you know, I still rode. I had to ride into shop every day and all this, and I rode whenever I could on the weekends, but I lost my Saturday. And so I lost a fair amount of fitness, right? I mean, I think I'm better than the average bear, and about the same time, my mind shifted to the point where I've gotten getting that pleasure or that high that Mike was talking about. You know, I did the death ride, I did the Belgian waffle ride, I'm doing these longer events, and I'm going for the satisfaction of finishing them. And if I happen to have a great result, and some of them I have, that's great. But I'm getting like, if I come in ninth and not first, or if I come in 11th or whatever, I'm like, I just rode 135 miles.
Right.
And I did 10,000 feet of climbing, right? So I've kind of, even right now, I've got 3 big things in June, I think, which are north of 100. So the losing the fire, and I'm rambling a little bit, but
No.
is do I want to put myself through what it would take to get back to, and the answer is yes, I've started to the point where I could line up at Bariani and feel like I did a good job, or line up with the 1-2-3s. And I had some good results as a 1-2-3, even though I'm only as a 3. But I don't know if I want to fight to get back to that level, because I'm not that young. I'm 63 years old, right? So I'm not sure I want to work that hard when I'm having fun riding centuries and doing big gravel events, that type of thing. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it does hurt me when I find that, like, I go out on hop and I struggle, or when I didn't used to. But the other thing too is, I think, and I hopefully I've answered your question, but one thing that Mike didn't discuss there. Oh, well, I will say, oh, it's raining. I'm tapping out. Like, because it's going to be sunny tomorrow, and I'm going to be able to ride.
Yeah,
You know
we
what I
do
mean?
live in California. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, can I
But
just interject something real quick? So
sure,
one
Mr.
thing,
Hypothermia.
yeah, okay, I deserve that. But
Yeah, you do.
so one thing about Dave is that Dave really beats himself up, right? So he goes through a lot of mental stuff where he's into data, comparing his data, oh man, I'm just not riding like I used to. I like where I'll go ride dial. I mean, I care kind of, but I don't, it's just not that big a thing to me. And if I have, if I have a bad outing up Diablo, I think that maybe because I'm doing so much climbing that it's like I feel like I'm sabotaging myself. Like if I was really going to make a run at Diablo, I would want to taper and kind of get,
Mhm.
set myself up for like a real honest effort.
Yep.
But I'm showing up all the time just cooked. So it's like, I'll go climb it and it's like if we're getting spicy, then I'll go for it and but
Mhm.
I just don't put that kind of pressure on me. But Dave has always had this thing about the numbers. And so I'm curious with somebody like yourself, Larry, are you paying attention to this stuff? And are you beating yourself up if you're not like on Tuesdays, I'm supposed to do an easy day and I need to keep it at 180 watts for 2 hours. Are you that guy or are you more like, nah, I'm just going to get out here. I know what I need to do. I'll be ready for this weekend. And do you beat yourself up if you don't achieve, a good ride, so to speak, like Dave does? I'm
Well,
always trying to encourage him like, hey man, you're riding great.
again, not just my mom and my wife, but I've had some. Well, I'll start with the blunder first part. I've never had a coach. So I am a USA Cycling Level 1 coach. So been doing that for years. We can talk about that stuff later. But I am coach myself, and I'm gonna kind of make it a full story. Is my dad was a perfectionist, and I am a finance person, which so you'd say, well, yes, you're supposed to be. You don't want everything to be accurate and tied out to the penny and all that good stuff. But I am glad I shed my perfection because I think that I'm going to use an extreme, and I'm not trying to paint an example for Dave, but I think like I don't even look at my power anymore. I don't have power meters anymore because I am getting slower, but it's a relative thing, right? So again, if Dave and other people are going, because this is a sport of comparisons, that and you're judging yourself and looking at yourself against other people, then it can suck the fun right out of it. I'm gonna give a different example. We had a kid on our team, who less than 50 kilograms, right? So under 110 pounds, and could climb like an angel. But how many races do you think in Northern California we have suited for him? So he had to be really, and you can imagine and think of a lot of pros that are these slate built people, and so they can climb. But the usefulness that I could give to someone like that, because I could not climb like him, just to be totally clear, is that he had to be patient. He had to learn how to sit very, very comfortably in a pack for a long period of time so that when he got that race, whatever it happened to be, that happened to finish or have a key factor was the climb, and he could then play his trump card, which was bigger than anyone else's card, that he had it, right? He was not a wreck to get there. He was all calm and everything. And that kid could do that. But again, it's a game of patience because there's not that many races that have hilltop finishes or a hill that selects it like that. So that's just an example of like of it's a way of dodging your question on perfection and wondering what I'm about, because it's not about me. I think literally as the aging athlete, again, I go back to the original part, which was like I'm not going to say this was the past. I don't look at other 65-year-olds and go like, oh, he's doing something different. We're all just different. Let's just also, I'm going to end this bit of my part by
Wait, you said we were going till 5.
no, I'm just gonna end this part is that cycling is such a great sport. Again, we're in love with it, and that's what I'm trying to say is like it's such a great sport because one day you could be like you could be on top of yourself and you could be on top of the podium and you could have a great day, but the next day, just the way the sport is built on whatever event it happens to be, or just even like the wind changed or the distance changed or the competition changed or age groups or all those other things change. And now all of a sudden you're down off the podium or wherever, it is. So to be humble when you've won the day, and to be, not in somebody's face or not weeping or whatever it happens to be, the other extreme on the day that you lose is really important, right? So how you're projecting yourself, you start to see. And now if I can come back to a thread I left hanging out there, is like I was on a really good Masters team. And again, we can get spicy with that, but I was on the Subaru Montgomery team, which then became the Postal team, and AMD and Discovery and all that good stuff, which then we had a junior team eventually. So we stopped doing Masters. We had a pro team and a Masters team, but I was surrounded by real champions, national champions, Olympians, and elite world champions. So anything I did as a national champion or a world champion on the Masters level was not comparing apples to apples. And a lot of people like to do that, where they're like, hey, I won nationals. I did win nationals. I won nationals last year. But how many people were in the race, right? We're talking 65-year-olds that you go, like, I'm kind of making light of this, but you go, and anytime you want to go to nationals and you look at the registration information and it says you must be a Cat 3. So now a little bit to Dave's point, it's like, okay, this is comparison and competition and stuff like that. Well, when you're over 60, it doesn't matter what category you are. And so now connecting the other story, I said, where you can go on road results and look at the results of everyone. I do for nationals. I know every single starter. And instead of like going, okay, doing a lot of homework on the people that are winning, because I know some of those people, I've raced against them for years, I'm doing homework on the guy that's a Cat 5 and has never raced before, because I don't know if he's, like, literally, he could be I'm now getting spicy. He could be a Zwifty. He's been doing Zwift and he's stronger but he doesn't have a skill to do a criterium, because that's an event that I went and did and won. But if he gets to the front of the pack and can't corner and takes out half the pack, I got to know that number, right? So it just keeps it, there's an intellectual side, but I try not to be. I'm gonna now completely wrap up that part, is like, I try not to be a perfectionist and just go like and say, it doesn't matter what my watts are on the day. If I read the race right and follow it, I think I'm better off for it.
All right. Well, hey, Dave, hopefully does that help you at all?
It does, but yeah, it does. But I just want to counter that, like, if in terms of, he says data, he's close, and Mike's absolutely right with quotes. I'm so defensive today, but
He's absolutely right.
Am
But
I on the attack?
but I don't. If you ask me what my FTP is, I have no idea. I don't know what my zones are. But what I do is I look at why can't I do it the way I did last year or the year, or that's it. He's absolutely right. I beat myself up, and I've just got to. I think I'm slowly coming to the realization, as I told the other day, I'm asked my wife for money so that I could buy bigger gears for my rear cassettes, and a new derailleur, because I can't climb in the same gears that I used to. So I'm slowly coming to grips with it. But yeah, it's been a tough couple of years to say, wow, I can't get to the junction in 25 minutes. I used to be able to, right? So that's all.
Yeah, but again, this is what I love about the sport. So real quick, not to sound like a bragging point, but I have held or gained or grabbed 3 world records, right? So
wow.
One when I was 50, one when I was 55, one when I was 60, all in the 2-kilometer time trial on the track, right? So just to give that some perspective, instead of sounding like I'm bragging, because it's not. There are 20 velodromes in America. These were world records, so there's more than 20 velodromes around the world. Yet there's not that many countries that have a lot of old guys that go to world championships. There are some big ones. The United States sends a lot of people. So because we exercise later in life, the UK, because they're held there, but also they exercise later in life, the Aussies, and then a few other nations that do this. But it's not like, okay, you win a world championship, but how many people did you really beat, kind of thing? And so I'm kind of sharing that story because it goes along with the answer that you asked, which is like, okay, I could have measured every single thing along the way, because it's 2 kilometers. You know exactly the distance. You know exactly the wattage you need to do. But instead, because they were all about 5 years apart, because obviously I was in 3 different 5-year age groups. But what I'm talking about is adapting, because in 2009, when I broke the record, and then when I broke it in 2014, they were different training methodologies that I had to go to. So I had to adapt to the training that was an aging body. So you got a variable that is moving. An aging body, technology on the bikes were getting better, like literally, like, running double disc and things like that. Just everything, skin suits, helmets, pacing techniques. I mean, these are, and then starts and the strength of a cyclist, doing weight work and things like that. All those variables change. So they changed again in 20, whatever that was, in 2018 when I broke another record. So it's a challenge that is never really, and they've all been broken, just to be clear. Like, and that's the cool part, is like they're all bettered, and they're it's fun. At the same time, there's people in front of me that are trailblazers, and then I get to follow them and try to be the next, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So I have a just out of left field here. I worked with a guy named Keith Ketterer. He's
Yeah.
he's a track guy.
Yep.
He holds a couple world record, or he held.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I have the Masters. I have a poster right here. He did the
Yeah,
math.
say hello to Keith. Keith actually is a coach as well. I think he's doing
Yes.
less coaching and less racing, but he did hold the hour record. I don't think he was a 2K guy, but he would be another old guy like me, that he
Yeah.
would get out there and just try to hang on with the young guys, right? It's like, let's go that way.
Yeah.
And same thing, like I would say this to juniors, like you've got nothing to lose, right? A 16-year-old that's out there with adults. First of all, the adults don't want them in the race. So we would go over things like, why is an adult yelling at you? Well, an adult yells at you because they're not trying to be abusive. They really they want to get something out of you, which is like, hey, can you be at the front and pull me to a win, is kind of the answer.
Yeah.
But the same thing, like, as old guys, we don't get yelled at as much, but let's just say an old guy can jump into a race with younger people. We got nothing to lose. Like, I can hang on for as long as I can hang on. You better drop me, right? Like, you're younger than me and all those other things, right? That's just
Right.
kind of, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
Keith's a good guy.
Yeah, no doubt. He really helped me when I was coming out of, when my kids were younger. I was coaching. I just wasn't cycling much. And then there was a point where it's like, oh, okay, I can get back on the bike. And he gave me some real basic stuff to work on, and kind of like a regular program just to kind of for my first year. And yeah, super beneficial. And he's a great guy. We don't work together anymore, but
Okay.
yeah, but he is also, he's German, and he's very, rigid and regimented. And, he would even say sometimes, like, well, I saw you didn't do the ride that you were supposed to do.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, I was just, I had I was at a shop, and I did this ride with these other people, and it just wasn't, and he's like, yeah, well, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm just like, I was just like,
Taking all the
well,
fun out of it. Speaking of
yeah.
taking, yeah.
I said,
So
it's a weird thing as an outside rep, you want to ride with your accounts. And so I can't, and I love doing that. And
Mhm.
so I don't want to be so regimented in a program to where I could be like, yeah, no, unless you want to do intervals today, I can't ride with you, or something like
Right,
that.
right. I
I
can't
would
coach you
never,
unless you do A to B, right?
yeah, I would never do that. So
Right.
yeah, I always try to keep it
Well, but
fun.
so let's just dissect that, right? You take an
Mhm.
hour, right? It is going from A to B and like as many laps as you possibly can, but the time didn't change. So the variables are limited, and you could train a certain way for that. But let's go the other way. Any ride that you do with another friend, or any race that you might do with a group, there are so many variables. I prefer to have the approach of like, hey, wait a minute, how am I going to adapt? Because I can go in with a plan, but what am I going to do when that plan goes off the rails? Because it's going to, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, I think it was Mike Tyson who said, everybody goes in with a plan until they get punched in the face.
right,
Yeah. And sometimes that happens on a ride. Not that you get physically punched, but
right,
all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like, oh, I guess we're doing this today,
yeah.
and you've got to adapt to your point. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Hey, I want to backtrack on one thing if we can, because you had talked about I saw the post on Facebook of, and the question about, and you mentioned it, do we want to race, and we talked as a teammate. And I may have overstepped my bounds a little bit because I saw your teammate's post there as well, and he was talking about TBI. Well, another guy that was on the podcast actually has a foundation because he went through a TBI. So if you're teammate, who I'll leave the names out of it, wants in any way to be connected to this guy because he's got a foundation about it because he crashed in a cyclocross training race and went through 2 years of hell. So if there's any issues, just look. I got all the contact information. I could get those guys together.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Dave. No,
because
that's great. Yeah.
he's a fantastic guy, a great
Yeah.
resource. We've had him on the pod
But,
twice.
so again, I'm gonna thank you for bringing that up. And don't mean to cut you off, but I just did. Is right. So I would argue, right? So we do have House of Pain and Spectrum and lots of other group rides.
Anarchy and
Yeah.
yeah.
And, but I would, and people literally, that's what's happening, right? One of the reasons our numbers are down is people are going like, I'll just do this one out my front door. I don't need a number, don't need to, no matter the cost of the sport, they'll always complain about the registration. They'll say, oh, okay, that registration, I don't have to do that. But one would argue that they're more dangerous in those group rides than we are on any race that has got someone that is at least taking a look and said, okay, wait a minute, there's a pothole here, or there's a traffic here, and we stop traffic, or whatever it happens to be. And to your point, that's why I interrupted you, to the crash of the individual that's my teammate, is like, yeah, we have talked about it. And real quick, back to my story, is like, in 2017, I stopped coaching the juniors. So I did an 11-year run of coaching juniors, and it's part of my, one of the questions you had was like, okay, what's Team Nolan, right? So Team Nolan is taking 3 decades that I had before I started the company of financial support for different large corporations that I worked for. And I went out on my own because there was an opportunity, because I'm mostly an opportunist, that most small companies don't need a full-time person. They got, so have been for the past 15 years with Team Nolan, wearing caps of like, okay, I'll do facilities and benefits and hiring and firing and finance for your company at this project rate or hourly rate. And then, because I didn't have that many clients, I started to do the coaching on the side. And it turned into this great opportunity to coach these juniors because I love helping people. With juniors, you get this instant growth and progression that you don't always get with working with another athlete. You can get it, right? Someone that is into it and is flexible and adaptable and has goals. But juniors literally would try something and then either not succeed and then try again and not get it. I mean, it's like so adaptable and good to work with. But in 2017, the team stopped for various reasons, including me. And I decided, you know what, I think I'm right. I was almost 60 years old, and I'm like, it's time to go out the pasture and just like stop racing and doing this crazy sport. And I'm going to turn it back into maybe what the listeners and viewers can get from this is that I then re-engaged with racing at a new level because it was less about doing an event, but more about literally just the goal, right? So if goal was to go back to Worlds, whether I went or not, because I've not been every year, but they were also coincidentally World Championships for track were in Los Angeles. So I was like, okay, wait a minute, it's easy for me to get back in and they were always late in the year, say October, and which is anyway, something to shoot for. If I had something to shoot for, then what I found out is the process along the way of getting fitter or faster and without metrics. Like I literally can go for a ride. I mean, just like Mike is saying, I do climbs, and I know like I don't need to like get a stopwatch out every time. I do, but I don't need to get a stopwatch out every time to go, okay, that was good, right? I'm ready. I feel faster or whatever happens. I'm more prepared. And so it's always the process before the actual like, oh, I've reached another goal kind of thing. It's something that I shoot for. Let's go back to just even if we turn it to like basic psychology, it's like I love to eat, right? And if I didn't have these ambitions and goals, I think I would weigh a lot more than I do, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
and going back to Mike's point is like I have like anyone that follows me on Straw, I have some strange, I just write every day. It's nothing big. It's not big at all. But I prefer to get my daily therapy. Maybe like even Mike is saying, sometimes you push a little too hard and like, I'm a little knackered, but it's like, okay, I want to do it again tomorrow. I always leave something on the table to go like, here we go. I get to go tomorrow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. I mean, I think that that's it. It's actually totally it. And that's, I think, one of the things that was missing in my world was a goal, right? And Mike, you set a goal every year, like 1,000,005 feet vert, right? Well, and one of my goals recently was to work my fitness back to that. And I actually did go on a training program, right, on Zwift, because it was pissing down rain every day. So I'm like, well, I might as well do it inside. But on the other hand, that thing was also a goal because every day it said by Wednesday you need to finish this, right? And so it was something. It wasn't so much about getting. It turned out to be about not getting back on hop or signing up for a race. It had to be with, well, there's a goal, and if I don't meet that goal, then it's something like if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, right? And that's what was, and I think that that's what was missing in it. Now it's coming back, and I think it's incredibly helpful, and that's what I hope all the listeners hear, right? Maybe even for a beginner rider, their goal is just to get up to Mount Diablo, right? Well, set that goal, then how do you get there? What is the process to get there? And that's what I think so many people just forget, right? But still have fun doing it. Don't let it take the fun out of it.
No, I mean, when you invited me, I did listen to Lori Lee Lowndes' interview that you did with her, and like she nailed it on. Again, I didn't go through your extensive library, but she nailed it, right? Like, a lot of people, at least what I understand from Peloton, is right. They're very proud of the number they're on, right? Like, and when they hit a milestone, they celebrate it, like literally on the screen, like, hey, so and so, number 600 or whatever it happens to be, right? It's like it is. That's a different type of goal, but it's very, very similar, right? They know it's out there. They're like, I'm being rewarded for being consistent.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. Dave mentioned Zwift. The last couple of years, I'm doing a lot more Zwifting in the winter than I used to. And I don't know how I feel about it. I do like Zwift. I think that it kind of triggers something in me where I can just like I could think I'm clapped out and then I get on there and then all of a sudden some dude from France passes me on the Alp and it's just like, oh yeah, and then it just kicks off, and it's like
fire scare.
yeah, right. Yeah. So it's just kind of silly, but so do you in your preparations, do you use Swift as a tool or are you just more like you just keep it outside?
I do, yeah, I do not. I will go outside in the rain.
Yeah.
But again, if we're talking safety, that's not the best time to be out on the bike. And I'm not talking about me crashing. I'm just talking about it, visibility and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
and wear and tear on bikes, right? So I am not opposed to indoor training. I have athletes that are indoor training, and real quick story of a teammate in 2020. What was it? Maybe July of 2020. He's like, "Whoa, I got to back off here because I am too fit." Right? We in July of 2020, we didn't know when we might get back to outdoor activities and things like that, and literally he was getting very, very fit. So it works. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get before Worlds on the track, I get on rollers, not necessarily Zwift, but I get on indoor trainers, and just you got to get your cadence up, right? We plow along too much, and literally the name of the game on the track is like, okay, you get that one gear choice, and what are you gonna do, right?
Right. Yeah.
I know we're pressed for time here, right? And I'm sorry, but I want to take a right-hand turn because I think Larry, I told you, and I hope that they come through because they were genuinely interested. But it was very fortunate to spend a week down at Sea Otter with USA Cycling. And I thought I was going down because my buddy Lee runs the mountain bike program. He moved to Bentonville for them, and I thought I was going down to help out. Well, it turns out he was transitioning away, but at the time he was also running the track program down there. And this was all about getting track sprinters, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I can't say I'm going to come down to Hellier anytime soon, but I really fell in love with it. I'm like, I can't wait, to the Olympics, and I can't wait to watch these championships. But it's so under, I don't know. It's just, I just don't, we don't hear about it enough about it here in the States, at least in my world. But also too, what I walked away was they're different kind of riders. And here you seem to have crossed that chasm. You race road race, you do crits, and then you race track. But like they looked at me and said, no, you wouldn't have a shot. Well, they were very focused on the sprint, right? So they wanted people,
Okay.
they were looking for the rowers or the BMX people for these guys got on, one guy got on this thing and he generated 2,300 watts.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
So they earmark him. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I waited till they all left the booth, like one day to get breakfast, and I jumped on the thing. I think I almost broke 1,000, but I didn't get there. You know what I mean? So I was like,
That's okay. It's calibrated.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
is it just the type of track stuff that you do, or is it? I mean, because you seem to have made that crossover, and obviously have done quite well on it.
Well, okay, try to make this quick because I am out of time, but
Yeah.
I did a hilly crit, local, like in 92, and John and Linda Elgart, who were local legends,
Mhm.
since moved to Pennsylvania, said, hey, you should go to the velodrome. I'm like, the what? Because literally I lived here, whatever. That's a long time. And I didn't know we even had one. So it's understandable that there's only 20 in the United States and not everyone's heard of one. So like literally access is not key. And then you're talking this one in San Jose is in the heart of traffic, right? The people that are going down to Morgan Hill, and that's usually the time that sessions start. So you're talking about the thick of traffic. So even if someone goes down and goes like, I had a great time, and then they go, oh, but it took me an hour and a half to get here, and or whatever the number is, and I'm not sure if I'm going to come again. Um, that becomes a barrier. And it's sad. And literally, USA Cycling used to talk about barriers to the sport. And that is sad when they turn away anyone from growing our sport. And that's
Yeah.
literally probably a good wrap up on what I want to do is like, I'm trying everything I can and it will listen to anybody. So people, I'm very approachable, and it may seem like I'm busy, but I'm not, because I used to have 14 juniors running around and trying to like kid up myself so I could go ride with them afterwards or something like that. And I can handle it. So come up to me and let's talk, because what should happen, including you, Dave, is like they say like, hey, come and try it on this day or whatever. And like, let's grow this sport, because you and I sit there and follow someone that can do 2,200 watts, and then now all of a sudden they're in, not maybe not this Olympics or any Olympics, but maybe they're on TV someday, and we go like, I remember that kid, or I remember that gal, right? It's
Yeah.
like, that
Yeah.
becomes how the sport grows, not to shut out and say, oh, you shouldn't try that, you can't put out the watts, because let's go the other way. I am not just a track rider, and I don't like that that anyone should get a label like that. Some people do like to specialize. I literally have not specialized in track. Um, but I believe it is the means well, I don't know if there is an end, but because that's a strange statement to say it that way, but it is a means for me to reach some of my goals. And the track keeps it social for me. It keeps it measurable. I know I don't need a power meter to know, okay, like a 22-second lap on Hellier is, 34 miles an hour, and I'm going pretty good, right? Conversely, if I'm not, then I might go, oh, it's windy today, right? I can
Yeah.
blame something, right?
Yeah.
My point being is that if I'm at the track and working hard with other people, I know I'm ready to go to the crit nationals and be competitive, because I know that's what it takes. It's like yes, we can ride all day and climb all night. And but at the same time, most races, just like Mike's example, may come down to 4 people at the line, and that means you got to have a sprint, right? It doesn't mean that you're less tired or more tired than anyone else. It means you got your head about you and you know what to do when the pressure comes,
Yeah.
whatever pressure you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, Larry, it's been a clinic in a lot of ways, and I know you have a heart out. So I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface of what we could, but
Good, good.
yeah, we want to respect the 5
No, we
o'clock.
want people to like go like, wow, I listened to that and it wasn't concluded. Like then they come to you and me and everyone and we talk about it. That's what we're trying to
Yes.
do.
So how does somebody, if they want to follow along with you, are you on social media? Do you
Oh, that's
website
funny.
or yeah?
I listen to a lot of podcasts and they always end that way. Like, okay,
Uh-huh.
give me your socials and like, yeah, I'm not social.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, on the networks, I guess I should. I'm very social. Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I'm listed on the helliervelodrome.com, right? They got a list of coaches and I run a Wednesday session every week. Uh,
Okay.
a Wednesday training session is literally the equivalent of like a bunch of Zwift people, but we're not more on the track under the lights, outdoors. So it's a Peloton clinic that we run and it's a hoot. So that's probably the best way to reach me.
All right. Well, terrific. Dave, I mean, we're right on time. Dave, do you have anything you want to add here before we break it
And
off?
yes, but we don't have time. So
All right.
it's incredibly grateful for you to join on, Larry. It was
Yeah.
huge and very insightful. So thank you very much.
Now, great to chat with you both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. That's going to do it for
Yeah.
this week's episode, everybody. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Dave. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Mike. Thanks, Larry. Peace.